Welcome, everyone. Exciting time for River North in this project and NDCC and everyone. My name is Todd Winskowski. I'm Deputy Director of the NDCC. For those who don't know, it's one of the major initiatives by Mayor Hancock as a part of the Corridor of Opportunity. His vision about the link from Denver International Airport all the way to downtown. So the project in the meeting here tonight, the projects we're talking about are all within one of the 6 major project areas within NDCC, and most of you I think are familiar with. It's in the River North kind of portfolio or project area. So thank you all very much for coming. I don't know Erica Martinez, our Director of Communications back there. I'm going to put her on the spot. Do we have any elected officials here tonight? I have not seen any, so otherwise I'd point them out. But yeah, thank you all for coming. This project is especially the park itself, is a partnership between NDCC and Parks and Rec. So you'll see folks from the Department of Parks and Rec here as well. So often with NDCC projects, we work in close partnerships with all the other departments in the city, depending on what we're working on. So for the promenade and the park itself, it's a close relationship with parks. So thanks to their staff and their efforts in leading all this. I'm really not going to say much. I think we're here tonight. It's the second meeting. The team has a lot of great concepts to show you tonight, and they want a lot of great feedback. So, provide as much as you want during the Q&A sessions, and then certainly we encourage you to walk around afterward, provide feedback at each of the stations. Then if you want to grab anyone involved with any of the projects, do that as well. The projects here, and especially River North Park, along with Brighton, are going to be one of the first 2 projects that are going to get implemented as a part of NDCC and the Mayor's vision. So they're extraordinarily important. Huge opportunity for these neighborhoods and these communities. And as we know in RiNo, really focusing on innovation and how to do things different. So with that, I am going to stop talking and turn it over to Nicole and our consultants. Thank you all for coming.
So we're going to talk about 3 projects tonight, and I'm just going to orient you, and then I'm going to pass it over to Greg. We'll talk about the first one. But 35th Street Visioning is in conceptual design right now, and they're in this room over here. If you didn't get a chance to go in there, they're looking at streetscape alternatives from the future bridge going over RTD to the future bridge that'll go over the South Platte River. So parking alternatives, a promenade along 35th Street. They have a lot of ideas, and go check out what they're doing over there. The promenade is another project that we'll be talking about tonight, and it's in conceptual design, and it's from 29th to 38th along Arkin's Court. So right now that's a vehicle street. In the future it'll be vehicle from 29th to 32nd, and then pedestrian, it'll be repurposed to pedestrian promenade from 32nd to 38th. And Greg's going to talk about that in just a second. And then we'll wrap it up with talking about River North Park. The promenade has been over here. The River North Park concepts are on the other side of the room, and I'll walk through what those big ideas are for the park concepts. And that one has funding through construction. There's $2.9 million for that one to get something built out there, so that's pretty exciting. And I'll let Greg start off with the promenade.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to start by just talking a little bit about how we've been thinking. What is the promenade? It's also, you have told us to think about the promenade through the first public meeting, through stakeholder interviews, and being out in the community. So the promenade is a place for families. It's a place for kids to ride safely. It's a place for all ages. People to stroll. It's a leisure place. It's a place to meet your neighbor, overlook the river, really hang out, if you will. Finally, a place on the Platte River where you can actually eat and dine and have a drink overlooking the promenade and overlooking the river. It's also a place we've heard strongly from you that it's to celebrate RiNo's industrial past. as well as the seasons and natural qualities of the river, like the thousands or hundreds of thousands of geese that flock here, sorry, tens of thousands of geese that flock here in the winter. And lastly, it is a regional destination, and it's really to celebrate RiNo's art and culture. So with that, as Nicole mentioned, the scope area is from 29th to 38th. The repurposing of Arkins. Next slide. So this diagram shows you connectivity and river access. And what you're seeing in yellow are connection nodes, if you will, that where, as you know, RiNo is somewhat landlocked between the rail and the rail. These nodes are where RiNo has a broader reach, if you will. It's less than a mile both to Union Station into the Central Platte Valley from 28th, close proximity to Globeville Landing and Globeville National Western Stock Show, and 35th is an important node, as Nicole talked about, the 35th Promenade, but that's connection to RTD, the greater region, if you will, as well as Curtis Park, Cole, Whittier neighborhoods. So there's good connection. 31st is a port and gateway. There's talk of another future bridge that might potentially go over the tracks in there. So that is how, you know, RiNo, if you will, or the promenade is connected to the region. But it's also connected locally within the neighborhood through the numbered streets. And even where there are not public streets that are going through, the developments in the area are making public access ways that will connect strongly from the neighborhood to the river. So at each one of these nodes, next slide, we're planning these, this is a concept for these visual gateways to the river. So when you're on Brighton Boulevard and you're looking down the hill toward the river, you're going to see these. When you're on the river in a canoe or you're on the path, you see these up along, connecting the river path with the river promenade. Our last meeting, there were a lot of concerns about vagrancy and homelessness and crime and other things along the river. So these are, not only are they visual gateways, but they're ways to get eyes both on the river and the river path, as well as to connect those between the path and the promenade. Next slide. Also guiding our thinking is just the context. The changes that are happening in this neighborhood are rapid. Almost every property along Arkins is in the city now with redevelopment plans. So we're guided by, you know, what is the adjacent context to the promenade. In this first reach, from roughly 28th to 32nd, there's a lot of residential development being proposed. So we see this as could be more of that outdoor residential living room for people. The park and open space promenade will benefit a lot from what we're talking about with River North Park and expanding park programs to the promenade. And then the third reach, if you will, there's a lot of planning for both residential but a lot of mixed use and entertainment district in this area. So we feel like this character, or these uses can really spill out onto the promenade and strengthen the relationship between the promenade and redevelopment. Next slide. So this is the plan that you've seen over here. I'll just walk you through these three various areas, kind of step by step. First, the urban residential promenade, and again, this is the place where you meet your neighbors, you look out over the river, you relax, you walk your dog, you really just hang out. Next slide. This is the plan for that reach. And the plan is very diagrammatic. So what you're seeing is the promenade is not this linear walkway, this tree-lined walkway. It really moves and engages the river and the street in different ways. As Nicole mentioned, traffic, 2 lanes of traffic and on-street parking. One side of the street will have on-street parking from 28th to 32nd right here. So that will contain vehicular traffic where the promenade will be much on the edge. Next slide. These are cross sections, typical cross sections through this reach. The top of bank, if you will, before it kind of falls down to the river, is generally about 20 feet in average. And so one concept here is that the promenade can be both this, but it can be like this as well, where we add stair steps and a river theater so that the promenade can be below the street level while also creating groves of trees and places to hang out at the sidewalk level. Next slide. This is a sketch of that with Arkins behind you and how you might carve out, places to sit, places to look out over the river while the path is also moving, in and out of the street and along the river. It's a good time for that. As you saw, the vegetation again was not the trees on much of a rhythm. We're thinking a lot of urban groves and using vegetation that is of the river. So cottonwood trees, alders, serviceberry, those things that you would find in a natural floodplain, using that in very urban ways. Native understories of both floodplain grasses and perennials. And these are the Denver region. This is the High Line in New York as an example that I think you guys have seen a lot in the last meeting. But the idea is here, I think what people love so much about this is not only the use, but the layering of vegetation and how natural and urban forms come together in really interesting ways and how they're woven together. So the idea is to use this palette much like that happens on the High Line. Next slide. So moving on to the Park and Open Space Promenade, roughly between 32nd and 35th. This is where the promenade is really going to open up onto the park, really support the park programming. Nicole will talk about the maker spaces, the labs, and the other thing that we'll talk about. So the promenade really should have a great relationship with those future park uses. So this is, it's left blank here on purpose because when you see, this is the park, sorry. Because when Nicole goes through her 3 alternatives, you'll see 3 different approaches to the promenade in that reach. So again, what you're seeing here is a small section. The other challenge that we have, there are 2 major sewer utilities that cannot be moved as part of this project that go under Arkins. And it is likely that the utility is going to make us keep that area paved. So what you're seeing here is, and generally that's about 25 to 30 feet wide. So there's a concept here that maybe what we're calling the boxcar garden is use these movable crates, if you will, that are vegetation or benches, and you create your own space along that path. One, to deter, fast bike use going through, but also give people that variety. Next slide. So this is an example of the boxcar garden, and these are both on the north and south edges. So the idea here is that these gardens can really frame the park, and they create this great threshold before you experience the open space. And really, again, like this time of year, you're celebrating the seasons, the trees are gold, the vegetation is turning, and really create this great threshold and great space before you enter the park. Next slide. And the last section here is the mixed-use entertainment promenade. And again, you're seeing the more festival-like atmosphere, the redevelopment area could spill out onto the promenade, and just a great opportunity to celebrate the rich art and culture of the neighborhood. So again, you're seeing generally in this red and purple hatch, the rhythm of the promenade, if you will. It's opportunistic in the way that we're areas it expands out, because that's where the top of bank really expands out. So the promenade in this section can be anywhere from 30 feet wide to 60 feet wide, so that we can start creating these little groves and enclaves and things to sit out and overlook the river, pockets that can be flexible for use, as well as opportunities to create cafe zones and things such as that along the river. Next section. This is a little washed out, but this is an example of if a redevelopment project were here with a cafe, there might be a designated cafe zone, but still plenty of public access throughout the promenade. And then there's also plans for amphitheater and an entertainment district here. Maybe there's a partnership that builds a promenade theater, if you will. So a public-private partnership that could create this great theater overlooking the promenade, and then steps that may go all the way down to the river itself. And so this is a sketch of something in that area where you're seeing, again, if the sidewalk cafe, if you will, that could be a private development, you know, where this might be the property line, overlooking the promenade, overlooking the river. In the background here, you're seeing one of the arched gateways, and really creating that strong relationship between public and private, and the opportunity to do something like this that, again, does not exist in Denver along the Platte. So with that, again, I think this is a great opportunity, and some of those similar ideas of partnerships are something I think Nicole's going to touch on in the park as well. So just quickly, what we want from you after this on this is really, you know, what do you like here? What do you feel strongly about? What don't you like? What have we missed? The accuracy of the plans as you know them. There are developers in the room as well. We're just really looking for some good guidance here because I know this is the first time we're seeing this part.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk about the park now, and it seems like everybody knows where that is. It's along the South Platte River, 35th. This is Festival Street, so that's not there right now. That will be going in. It's right behind Great Divide in the park. And the city is working on that currently. So here we are at the site, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about these buildings because in the different concepts, they're important to know what's happening with those. So here's the river again. The interstate trucking building's kind of in the center of the site right now, close to centering off to the side. It is used right now for maintenance for the Parks Department, but it doesn't have, it's not a conditioned space. It doesn't have utilities and hookups or anything going on with that. The Denver Police Service building, sometimes it's called the EEB building, so if you hear of that, it's along 35th Street. The library has a great example of that in their Idea Lab that's at the Denver Public Library. I got to see that over the last few weeks. It's pretty cool. But it's a place that you could go and have classrooms, learn about how to make different things. If it was bike repair, it could be anything from that to learning 3D printing, to laser cutting, to welding, probably on a huge level. So people were excited about those things. And then we did a survey and asked people at the last public meeting, what is it that you want to see in the space? It was online. We got around 200 responses, so that's pretty good too. And we had broken it up at that point as the sandbox, the stage, the lab, the river, and you know, I'd say they're pretty, you know, people wanted flexible spaces, they wanted the indoor maker space came up, temporary and permanent art installations, which is a different thing than you see in a lot of parks. Community agriculture came up, and we're doing a survey tonight. We have hard copies and online to dive a little deeper in exactly what the neighborhood is thinking for that, and I'll talk about that as we go into some of the concepts as well. And creative play, so not your catalog playground equipment, but how can it be more exciting and different and be artistic. And I would say another thing that was really huge was the South Platte River and having that river aesthetic into the park. So you'll see all of the same program in the concepts, but they're interpreted differently. So the first one is what we're calling the River Lawn. And this one has, it keeps the interstate trucking building as kind of the neighborhood hub of the park, the heart of the park that has performance areas around it. And it has kind of your traditional sloping lawn down to the river. So the promenade in this one actually comes into the park instead of staying along Arkins. And what that allows this concept to do is to regrade the sloping lawn down to the river. So if you were standing on the promenade, you can actually have a view down to the river, which you don't have on the site right now. So that's something that's pretty cool about this one. It also extends Festival Street, so right now there's a grade difference of about 8 feet from what the future Festival Street will be into about where the interstate trucking building is. So what this one does is it expands that out and creates an entry neighborhood square that we're calling Brewers Plaza at the corner of 35th and Festival, and it makes a nice entry that you can also overlook the park. And then play and all these activities that you can do, which is what all these words are, and if you go up to the boards you can see what they say and comment if there's other things you'd like to do in the park. So this is what that concept looks like. Brewer Square kind of sticking out into the park, and this discovery garden that might have trees and different play structures that you can walk through that space. It has what we're calling the urban agriculture that could be a community garden, it could be an orchard that you could go and pick fruit and bring it home. So that's something that's on the survey, is what does community agriculture mean in a park space? I think the other thing that this has is, so when the sloping lawn comes down, it has an overlook that maybe a soft surface path that brings you out to overlook the river, and point bars that create riparian edges down at the water that you can actually walk down these little, they're kind of sloped rock jetties that you could get down and touch the water's edge. And the next slide, what you're going to see is so this is a view from Brewers Plaza. So you're at 35th and Festival corner looking over the park, and you see the interstate building in the background, and there's a little wall here that creates that overlook edge. So the next concept is different than the first one. This one starts to be a little more urban, a little more natural, and combining those things. It still has this one has the festival edge is more of a promenade, so a 20-foot edge that extends off of the street, and it makes a connection to the interstate building that we're keeping, that's remaining as the indoor makerspace. In this one, it has a bridge to make that gap of grade. So you actually you can walk from the festival street and have a performance area on this bridge that then brings you, kind of extends into the building and would have steps down into the building for the makerspace. So it kind of creates a theater inside that building. Performance area happening around it. This one for the interstate, or the EEB building, the police building, it removes it but keeps the center portion. And if you click to the next slide, you can see that center portion, so the building, the trusses and the beams of the roof are kept, and you can hang swings down from it, and it becomes a place that you can play in and around and throughout it. It could also serve as a plaza that has this amphitheater edge, so you have terrace seating looking into that space, or a sloped lawn looking into that space. And it starts to bring nature into the park through collecting stormwater from 35th and creating this grove of trees through here. And whether it's stormwater or a landscape edge that has walkways walking through that space, so they're floating walkways, and the trees are coming up through it and up through the structure of the building. And then the event plaza works around the maker's space, and these are terraced edges walking down to the river, to kind of a more formalized edge, similar to what Greg showed of the steps down to the river. And if you go back just go back and I'll show. So this image is around to here on 35th, looking into the stormwater area and the structure. So if you go up to the board, you can see the kids swinging in the background here, and these floating walkways that bring you over the landscape, and the stormwater coming from And the third one, so this one goes a little bit further in the idea of bringing nature and the industrial past and into the site and how nature starts eroding the buildings. So this one, the interstate trucking building, landscape is actually coming through the building, and the roof structure on the front stays. Well, on the roof structure on the back stays, and the front of the building here starts to deconstruct, like the center did over here. And it's kind of what we've been calling RiNo's version of the Cheeseman Park Pavilion. So if you think of a park pavilion, this one's that industrial building and the idea of the past still there, and we'll show some images of that. From Festival Edge, it creates a terraced play area that could be a slope coming down that would have at-grade slides that you could climb up and slide down. It keeps the, why am I getting these names confused? The EEB building, the police building, it keeps two of them. So when that building was constructed, it was constructed in 3 phases, which makes it pretty easy to deconstruct in different ways. So it keeps the garage and the garage doors on the side, and there are actually, I believe, garage doors on the inside of that building that would face this Makers Plaza that keeps the overhead structure like the last one did, and then you have another conditioned building. So this is about 2,500 and this is 8,000. This building is about 5,000 square feet in size. So if you go to the next slide, what it does for access from 35th, it creates this prominent entry through Makers Plaza that has eyes on the park from the windows on both sides of these buildings and aligns you directly with the pavilion space. It has stormwater that could be collected from 33rd and Festival coming down this edge, and it's this green ribbon coming through the park and eroding the building. And if you rented this pavilion, you could have a little garden terrace on the back side that is a little bit more private than the rest of the park, but you can still use the whole space. And from a river standpoint, what this one has are ramps down that bring you down to the water's edge, and it creates these terraces up above that look down towards downtown, so down the river, and you can see downtown then from the park. So the first perspective that you're going to see is in Makers Plaza. So if you go to that slide, so this is one of the buildings that could be a maker space, could be an art gallery. Idea of play underneath it, with the rafters or the beams up above being able to have shade that maybe people could open and close themselves, and it creates different light on the ground plane that could change. The trees growing up through that structure, so it's kind of this what came first, the buildings or nature idea. And that you really see in the next one. So the next slide is, this is the interstate building, the pavilion. So the green ribbon coming through it, the covered space in the back, and using art, video projection of art and ecology to create light in the park, that those could change over time, and it creates another safety level to the park. So those are the 3 concepts. We've gone out on the street and asked some neighborhoods. We've gone to a school who graciously came tonight to see the presentation. Asked people what they were thinking, and what we really want to hear tonight is what you guys are thinking. So we have the survey, we have notes that you can write ideas down, what concepts you like, what you don't like about them. We want to hear it all. Because what we're trying to do is, what's the next slide? Yeah. So what we're trying to do is get to a preferred concept for a December 3rd meeting. So we'll have one more public meeting that we want to come back with one big idea for the park. So getting your feedback and sharing it with your friends and letting other people know to go online. The survey will be online tomorrow. We'll get the boards up. You can share it all. Write ideas on the promenade down, go back over to 35th Street and give them feedback, to get back together for the December 3rd meeting. And we'll do questions for a little bit. I know we talked for a long time, so I want to get feedback, but if there's specific informational questions or things you want to make sure everybody heard, I'll do a few. Yeah. Are there any public restrooms in the space? So there would likely be in the maker space in that building, but probably how that works is a little bit unknown right now. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there a possibility to use
So what he asked is there a possibility to do the green stormwater in version 3? Yeah, off of 35th. That one might be a little trickier under specific question because of where the building is located and the right-of-way is very tight right there. But that's the kind of thing we want to hear tonight. So, you know, there would be in the Makers Plaza, we might be able to do a little bit of it. I wouldn't say it's a definite no. There's some that's a little trickier. But you don't have to like one concept. You can like things in different concepts, and that's what the preferred will then become, is a mesh of everybody's preferences, hopefully. I would love it if there was one that was perfect, but there won't be. I don't even think I would love that. We want to hear different feedback and what you like about each one. Other questions? Okay, I won't make you sit here any longer. We want your feedback, so come find us, ask questions. We've got name tags on. We'll be over at the boards. Take the survey. If you didn't pick up a hard copy survey, it's online as well, and you can do it online either way. Either way works for us. So thank you, everyone, for coming.